Hello everyone. We're going to look at problems 3 and 4 from our test review. Problem 3 has to do with retail and dollar value LIFO inventory. So they're going to do that together, both of them. And they've given us the information we need for costs and retail, markups, and the inflation rates that we need, as well as sales. So looking at an Excel spreadsheet, we might set it up kind of like this, where we have the cost and retail in two columns. Here is the markups. Remember, we use the markups to calculate the cost percentage, but not the markdowns, in order to approximate lower of cost or market. So here is the total of these two items. See, we ignore, for calculating our cost percentage, we ignore the beginning because we want LIFO. This is the last one's in. All right, so that's going to govern our calculations. So here's that. And then we take just the 833,000 and we divide that 833 by the 1287, which was those together, and get, just under 65%. You can round this however you want, but that's not unrounded. That's what it looks like. Now, we have to keep going. We took that pause. We have to keep going to figure out what our ending inventory at retail is. So that for that calculation, we include the beginning, all right, and mark downs. So we add all of these, then subtract, then we subtract our sales at retail, and we get an ending inventory at retail of 229. So what do we need to do now that we know what our ending inventory at retail is? We have to take the inflation out. We divide it by the 1.03 to take inflation out, it gives us 222. We then compare it to what our beginning inventory was at retail, and we get our new layer is 19,330 at retail. Finally, then we convert it to cost. Why? How do we do that? By multiplying it by this here. That's why we took the pause to figure this out. And that is our new layer at cost. We simply take that new layer, add it to our cost at the beginning, and that is our ending inventory at cost for the year. Okay? That, start the whole thing again. The 229 becomes our beginning. Our 159, 886 becomes our beginning for the new year. And we have some new numbers for purchases, for markups and markdowns, and so forth. We do the same thing. Again, calculating the cost percentage. All right. This time it's a little bit lower than it was last time. We include everything in there to get our ending inventory at retail. Once we have ending inventory at retail, we then divide by 1.08 to get the ending inventory without inflation at retail. We then compare that to the last time we measured our inventory without inflation, which is right here. We have a new layer at retail of 145, which is the difference between those two. We then convert that to cost by multiplying by the cost percentage. And then we have our ending inventory, which is simply our ending inventory last year plus this new layer. All right. And then we have our third year where everything comes down. 260 comes down to the beginning. 397 comes down. We have our purchases. We have our markups. All right. We have our markdowns, ending inventory. We calculate our cost percentage, same way as before. All right. Now we take our ending inventory at retail, take out the inflation, we get 270. Divide to take out the inflation. We compare it to the last time we did that, and we see this is well below that. So no new layer. In fact, we have to go back to this year before we find that we have a positive number. So what we're looking at is that compared to that. And that is our layer at retail. We're going to then convert it to cost. Now, we're not going to use this cost. All right, we're going to use the cost from the year that it actually was added. So we added it during this year because that's when we went above here. So we peeled off, had a LIFO liquidation, no new layer. So we used a different cost percentage. Now, our cost percentages are pretty close, so it didn't make a huge difference. But then we add it not to this number, but to the number before that, okay, for 2015. So this is actually, there's no 2017 layer. This is actually a 2016 layer. So then we can summarize our results with our beginning net purchases for each year, ending inventory to get our cost of goods sold. Remember, beginning plus purchases minus ending equals cost of goods sold. We got our sales given, and gross profit is sales minus cost of goods sold, and gross margin is gross profit divided by the sales. All right, problem 4 has to do with a bank and Tiger Corp, or 3 banks and Tiger Corp. Tiger's having some difficulty, and they have 3 loans outstanding in 3 different banks. And here's the information about those those loans for each one of them as they currently stand. Okay, so in sitting down with Tiger, we're going to renegotiate some of these terms, and as we learned earlier, anytime that happens, the bank is going to get less, and so therefore it's going to be a loss. So we just need to figure out how much that is, because any change to the terms will be a loss. So we have the terms here currently, and this is the proposed new terms. So we need to look at what we would do for these loan restructuring. So we go over here to Excel to do some calculations. We see that this is what the loan is currently. We got the loan balance plus interest, accrued interest. We're going to calculate the present value of those payments under the new terms, at least the new payment and the new number of payments, but we use the old rate of interest. Okay? We don't try to guess what the new one is. We use the old rate of interest to calculate that. That gives us 249. So we would have a loss on this loan of the difference between these two numbers, almost $200,000 loss, debit loss, and credit note receivable. All right. Moving on to the second loan, instead of restructuring it with new payments, we're going to repossess, it looks like, the collateral. So the loan is 139. The collateral has a value of 135. That makes it even simpler. our loss is simply the 48.14 difference between the value of the collateral. So if there is, the likely scenario is repossession of collateral, not continued payments, then we do calculate the fair value of the loan based on the fair value of the collateral. And then the last one, we have a line of credit with, again, some interest added in of $9,000. We then figure out the present value of the loans, of the future payments, using the old rate of interest, 9% on this, okay, and it's 10 years and the new payment. Gives us a fair value of just under 80,000. We take the difference between these two, that's a loss. We're going to debit loss and credit the note receivable. Now, once we start receiving payments, what payments are we going to receive? We're going to receive the new payments, $2,900 in cash and $1,003 in cash. When we calculate how that breaks out by interest versus principal, we have to calculate using our new values here and here times the old interest rate, 7% here and 9% here. And then, of course, divide by 12 to get your interest. Okay? So you calculate how much is interest and how much is principal. And then, of course, the amount of interest is you're going to receive the cash, that's a debit. You're going to credit interest revenue for the amount of interest you calculate, and you're going to credit note receivable for the principal part. Always interest first. The interest is going to go down each time as you receive more payments, because the amount that's owed is going to be less with each payment.